Okay, call the workshop to order at 6:38. Okay, our first, we have the agendas for public safety tonight. There's one item on the list for fire police. I'm not going to discuss that tonight. That's just going to be a placeholder. That'll be coming up in a few more weeks or some reorganization going on, and we're not ready to present the budget on that. We'll do first off with the police department.
So I don't know if you want to do it like we did last year, or just go through the line items. If you have any questions, we could break out into those individually, answer any questions you have.
Sure.
Initially, we have our regular payroll. Thanks to the assistance of Allison, she was able to break that down for you to show our contractual raises that were projected to initiate on July 1st. Obviously, the contract was settled out of the original fiscal year we're in, so there was what would appear to be an increase, but it's actually explained in these columns here. So I hope the board can see that these raises are in line with the ones that were awarded in the contract. In addition to the regular payroll, we have two additions to the payroll this year. In our proposal, we have our police social worker, who we've moved over from professional services. Previously was budgeted at $104,000 under professional services. We've moved her over into the salary line item at $85,000 with a salary. Or a placeholder pending negotiations with Human Resources for a non-union contract. In addition to that, I also have a 60th officer. That officer is a split between the Board of Ed and the police department. That 60th officer is to function as the third school resource officer and mirror the previous proposal from last fiscal year, which was a 59th officer with also a BOE salary split. That split was for the City Hill school resource officer. So this third SRO will be allocated between the elementary schools in a roving patrol, randomized, and also will focus on school security measures to work with the Board of Ed. So the patrol schedule and the presence of the various schools will be random, but we'll ensure a dedicated officer to deal with any security issues and also a randomized presence. Based on the different analysis as we presented in the fiscal year leading up to this, we determined this was the most cost-effective measure. We had previously tried allocating an officer on overtime for visibility presences and randomized patrol at the elementary schools. That's projected probably over $100,000. We also explored with the Board of Ed armed security at the schools. That option, due to Connecticut state statute, requires anyone armed for school security to be a retired police officer as defined in state statute. That would probably be a reoccurring cost, approximately around $300,000 to $350,000. So based upon our work we've led up to this proposal, I believe the 60th officer is the most cost-effective way to increase school security and also our presence at the elementary schools. Most of our peer agencies do have about 3 SROs, and I felt that that was appropriate to present before the board tonight. Moving down to part-time, we have a slight increase in there.
We'll stop there.
Yes, sir.
Because for the new numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they look at the number 409,000, that's not this year, that's the total of everything that's happening. So the police got basically a 4-year contract, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2.5, 2 3/4. But there was some give backs in insurance. So every year, their annual increase is a little under 2.5%. And we have it all broken out on the fiscal impact. So the increase for just this year, I think you have it at 174, which is your wage increase plus the social worker on the payroll, knowing that we're taking that off somewhere else, plus half of the 60th officer, and those 3 items total 174,263. Is that right?
Correct, yes, Allison did that breakout earlier, so.
Okay, so then the difference between 174,263 and 409 are the wage increases for retroactive years that have already gone by, and you've been putting that money aside in our wage account. Right, Allison?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm saying is, to me, 409 is a huge number, but when you break it down, it's a very reasonable number, but I think it's not easy for everyone to see at one glance, so that's why I wanted to try and explain it.
And I do definitely think that that cost for that 60th officer is minimal in impact, as you saw in there. There's no questions at this time on regular payroll. I'll move down to part-time. Part-time, there were raises, anticipated raises for minimum wage. There's also a slight increase. We've asked for additional part-time 19-hour police service technician. That office, or not officer, that civilian will be a modified position between our current police clerks and also our sworn officers. So civilianizing some degree of work, particularly pistol permits, managing FOI requests, and digital evidence, which is our body cameras. With the body cameras, dash cameras, we received a huge inundation of FOI requests. They take a tremendous amount of time. So we do need somebody to help with that background, to help us manage that. Also, there's been an uptick in pistol permits. So we currently have one of our sworn officers doing that. We're looking for someone who can supplement that and 19 hours a week to try to get our turnaround time on pistol permits up and take the legwork off of that. It does not necessarily need to be a sworn officer to do the majority of that work. I do not want to put civilian clerical work on police officers. This is part of the strategy. You're trying to take some of that away and get the officers used out in their primary function. The police overtime, having reviewed this with Allison and having some internal discussions, we believe that we'll be in a good place maintaining our requested overtime allocation as the same as last fiscal year. Done a lot of projections and a lot of analysis on that, so I think we're in a good place with that. School allowance, this is a contractual item. We do offer tuition reimbursement to some of our employees. It's a retention measure. It is popular with our officers. We had a slight increase here from what we asked from last year. We basically will solicit our officers in accordance with the contract for anyone who requests to possibly put in for tuition reimbursement the following year. And that's how we arrive at that number of 74,748. So I think that's a reasonable projection. Also, you're seeing an increase in our clothing, cleaning and allowance. First issue for new police officers. There's been a slight increase in the amount of money it costs to outfit a new hire for a new police officer. Our education increment, you'll see in the next line, 52902. That is per contract. The officers are issued an increment based upon their degree of education. So we're seeing our projections for that. Professional services, 53010. We've moved the social worker from professional services up to salary, so there is a decrease there of $44,000. I know that there's the money on the back end, as Allison explained to me, that's going to any sort of fringe benefit package will be negotiated, so it's not a total wash there in that sense, but it's a reduction that you're seeing in our line item budget. So if anyone has any questions on that. And Katie, just to clarify, this has the 60,000 also for the
Supplemental social.
yes, so correct. So there's also $60,000 that we do have in there for our a BSN, which is a Bachelor of Social worker. So we are going to be using our current social worker, Sherry, who's at a higher level of care. She's a Master of Social Work, as case management, organizing, leading, and supervising our other social work efforts, essentially, primarily recovery, coaching, opioid, alcohol, a lot of things we deal with, homelessness, and we're going to bring on a subcontracted social worker at a lower level of care. So basically, the way it was explained to me, in like healthcare, you'll have, nurse, PA, doctor, so the same with social workers, higher levels of it, those master social work, bachelor social work, and there's like recovery coaches and some technical fields below that. So we've asked for $60,000 to subcontract the bachelor of social work, which is going to be able to spend a lot more time at a lower cost on the outreach efforts that we've been doing with people with substance abuse disorder, homelessness. This is something that comes under the police department's budget, but it's a townwide service. And just because we're in a position to deal with most of the underprivileged members of our community, we find it appropriate that we would be managing this. But this isn't to say something that, there are people in this room, there's people all over the community that reach out to the police department asking for problems to be solved. And we utilize our social workers regardless of what those are, but it's just been very effective for us to house it in our buildings. So I don't necessarily want you to look at this as a police department request. This is something that's benefiting the town. It's a town-wide service that we're simply going to be housing with the build out of our social work program.
Can I stop you really quick? Mayor, the money coming in with the Purdue and the Sackler, can that go towards this? As like a
maybe. I mean,
rollout
let's say
process?
this, we're gonna have to have the discussion with the town, youth services, the police, to decide how to use that money. I would say some of it could, it would be nice to know how much we're gonna get, but, if we got enough money, the answer is yes.
Yeah, just to kind of maybe kickstart that program with the recovery coaches and things like that.
And I remember, this social worker is gonna be working, to a large degree on some of those issues related to recovery coaches for opioids and things like that.
Yeah, so Megan, a lot of this is gonna be done more towards a focus on that because we felt we were overutilizing or underutilizing. We're using Sherry's higher level of care on some of the things that could have been utilized with a lower level of care. We did have a AmeriCorps grant for a recovery coach from AmeriCorps. They just didn't work out.
Gotcha.
They had a tough time really getting out there and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we're hoping that, you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're hoping this service will be able to find somebody who's gonna be a better mix.
So the answer to your question is maybe.
Okay. I'm just trying to help them out with their budget,
Yeah.
we're getting that money from Big Pharma anyway.
Let's say we should revisit that.
Okay.
So when this social worker was first rolled out, I believe we started it at 30 hours or so contracted by the state. Right now it's 2 or 3 budget cycles ago. So to see it expand, it's got legs and is succeeding, and I'm just happy to see that. And I'm glad to see that it's expanding and the budget is, I'm glad to see this request, is what I'm saying, because it's a service that our town should have and ought to have. And towns that don't are suffering from it, so.
Agreed, but
Yeah.
as Colin said, I mean, the mayor's office, emergency management, just a lot of offices call for help because situations that fall between the cracks come up not every day, but every week.
And Mayor, I will tell you, in addition to being a wealth of knowledge, she's been a lifeline for a lot of the people I've been working with. And I was pleasantly surprised. I was a little apprehensive when the program was first proposed, especially a couple years ago, and we had a lot of these unfunded mandates and so forth that were going through regarding the police. But I think that whatever we're paying her, she's worth 10 times that, and just the services she has provided our town in the time I've worked with her. And I'm glad we could expand the program.
Just one case, right?
Just one.
We all
case.
know the case, but
Yes.
just that one case was incredible, the amount of work involved.
Yeah, it's been instrumental and, from an operational standpoint, I don't want to speak just about one specific case, but any sort of our more significant crimes on persons, the fact that our social worker can work with the victim, their family, it means I have an officer now that can pull back from that and focus on investigating the case for that particular crime. So it has been something that's really increased our strength and effectiveness. Yeah, we do have some statistics on it. Deputy Chief's been keeping track of that. If anyone has any questions about that, I'd be glad to provide that in a follow-up or sidebar conversation. in addition to some anecdotal stories and such. Let's see, so we have the legal defense fund. That is a contractual item, essentially an insurance provided to the police union for officers. So what you're seeing in 53025 is community outreach. It was originally labeled DARE, then became community outreach. So that's essentially the DARE line item. Renaming it community outreach. While we haven't gotten back into the DARE program after COVID, we've actually found some other methods to be more effective with engaging in the youth in town. If you guys saw that we did our own Shop with a Cop, which was a huge success. It received a lot of positive feedback. National Night Out, we've done some pop-up ice cream events with some of the youth in the community, bicycle repair outreach events down at Linden Park. So being nimble with it and kind of finding out anything that happens to be going on in town that's an opportunity to positively engage with the youth and the community as a whole. We've been using that line item. So having it be a little bit more nimble, you know, it might be buying 10 pizzas to go meet up with a group of teens here that want to have an interaction with the police. It might mean supporting some sort of an outreach event with the seniors or something. So we really try to use this in a more flexible way. And I felt that we were pushed into a corner by simply labeling it as DARE. There might come a day when DARE is something that we're gonna push out again, but right now we found these efforts to be getting more feedback and interaction. So that's the explanation on community outreach. 53220, training in service school. You're seeing an increase in this one. This is due to a series of things. We do have a lot more mandated training from the police accountability bill. Also, having a young department, we do have a lot of additional training to try to train up our officers. They basically come on board with a very baseline of skill set from the police academy, but in order to advance their careers and give them specialization, we have to send them for something from 2 to 4 to 6 weeks of additional training each year, be an accident reconstructionist or detectives for any sort of forensic training or anything else. Again, this is another important retention tool that we found. A lot of the lateral police officers that we've taken on board, they don't receive any training beyond their mandatory recertification every 3 years. So sending them for a $1,000, $2,000 training course a few times a year has proven to be a huge, not just retention, but also a recruitment tool for getting additional officers on board. Considering the cost of training and recruiting a new officer from the academy on is almost $100,000. So you're seeing this really move the needle for a low level of cost. So training is something that we're very big on, especially the younger officers. So I really feel this is money well spent. Any increase in this is going to be effective. And we worked hard with our training division to try to come up with an increase that shows where our priorities are. 53221, that's conference. And you're seeing a slight increase in that one. That was because of the
Just general cost
yeah.
of conferences. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, most of these line items are because inflation or things are going up in price. So
And some of them are consistent ones that we frequently will attend, but they'll move venues. Some we can drive to, some have to be flown to. So it's a slight increase there. All right, the traffic lights account 54001. You were seeing an increase in that one just due to the, so these are the borough-owned traffic lights, which we're responsible for as a traffic authority. So it's generally about $800 to $900 just for them to come out. So any sort of traffic issues or anything like that with the traffic lights we own here in town, was it 8 of them, Dan?
7.
Seven traffic lights. So there's some sort of something wrong with them before they even come out and diagnose us. We got to pay them about $900. So we are asking for a $500 increase in that line item. It's hopefully will keep us where we need to be. But if you have 1 or 2 issues come out, it's just simply going to be blows the entire budget out very quickly. So traffic signs, as you guys are aware, we provide all the traffic signs again as a town's traffic authority. That has just been a you're seeing a decrease. Yeah, decrease. We were able to, I believe, purchase extra ones this year. in this fiscal year, and we did have a surplus, if I'm not mistaken. So we were able to project that out. So there is a decrease in that item.
Does traffic signs include stop signs?
Correct, yes.
Have you found any significance with the flashing stop sign? Is it doing any good?
We
I don't
haven't,
know.
we haven't had any collisions at that particular intersection. The only question, yeah. The only question though is frequently we get requests for that traffic sign, you know, in other areas, and it's a big commitment. It's about $1,500 per sign. So before we decide whether we're gonna outfit an intersection with that light, which is gonna be about $3,000, we really need some sort of statistical analysis, and we've had several come before us, requests, but we haven't found one that's been basically meriting that kind of data to back it up.
Thank you.
So,
Can I ask a question, Colin,
yes,
real quick? I noticed you're putting traffic mirrors up around town in certain places again. Is there any possibility of getting one on High Street by the cemetery where it's coming up from North Main?
sure. If you shoot me an email, we'll take a look at that and see if we could get one up there.
All right, thank you.
And Jan right there has just demonstrated where a lot of these go. So, you know, we get lots of requests. People identify safety and traffic hazards, so we try to accommodate the community as best we can. So, let's see. So 54301, maintenance, building and grounds. There is an increase in this particular line item. We're finding that our HVAC system continually needs a little more love and care as it gets older. We generally do our annual maintenance on the HVAC system, but we also learned from our new vendor that what we need to do is do an environmental preventative maintenance on the actual system that controls it, because our computer system, or the thermostat, basically the computerized system, is like, what, 4 or 5 years old now and out of.
Well, it's a proprietary system, the S&E building systems, and they're very temperamental. So as part of the building upgrade we want to do, not in this budget, at least, to go to a non-proprietary thermostat system. Which would definitely help out a lot, but this decision was made long before us. Also the cleaning.
Correct. Yes, correct. So the cleaning service also in there is an increase. So we transferred over $14,000, 14,780, I think it was. For the previously, we would have a cleaning part-time minimum wage janitorial custodial services. That position has gone unfilled since I'd say 2021, I believe, 2020 in. It was, we just, with the job market, we haven't been able to find anybody who wants to come in for the 19 hours a week and clean the building. So we had previously been using our maintenance staff to come in on the weekends, change the trash, clean out the bathrooms, do basic low-level maintenance. However, we were made aware of a company that does clean police stations, and they were able to essentially get us a quote that would fall within line of our part-time clerical or part-time janitorial costs. So we're subbing that out now to a company that not only will clean the building, but also has met all the security measures that we'd asked for a vendor to come into the building and the police department. So that is part of why you're seeing that increase in that line item.
Hey, Colin, on the HVAC system, you're not upgrading the units themselves, that's electronics upgrade.
So that's preventative maintenance, and it's also some electronics, basic, some slight upgrades, proprietary. They're gonna try to do their best to try to.
Not enough for a capital project.
No, not right now, no. So this is, so the best way to describe to me is they'll open up, I don't know, turn up the thermostat electronically and make sure that the vents are going up and the pulleys are all working, and they'll simultaneously make the maintenance. So they'll change the belts. If they don't see them working, they'll clean the duct openings and stuff. So it's kind of a simultaneous preventative maintenance. That's really what this is more of.
But your units themselves are okay shape for.
No.
I doesn't look
But
much.
we have 6 air handlers, yeah, there's just rough costs, and you have to really replace the entire HVAC system. We have a new chiller and fairly new ductwork. Probably 250,000, just a rough, nobody can give you a price either till it's engineered, but to actually replace all those air handlers and do overall the whole system, that is a capital cost. So
And then nightmare since.
it's been a nightmare.
And it's part of the problem is we don't want to commit to one project or the other until we know we're not doing any more redesigning within the
Yeah.
building, because certain maintenance, you know, if we were to move certain building or certain.
Go to one room.
Yes, that, so there's occupancy issues and stuff, so we're kind of doing a hold on that, and it's like, once that all were to go into play, we prefer to do that, so. But the temporary fix for the evidence rooms exchanger, air exchanger's been working, that's helped our officers downstairs too with that, so. We got it under control for now, but, you know, we'll see what the future holds.
But I thought the HVAC was part of the grant that we were, or maybe grant's not the right word, the funding that we were getting specific from COVID. Wasn't there
Not,
funds that were going to be allocated for, not just for the police department, but in general that we could use towards HVAC specifically?
so a lot of HVAC related items were purchased mostly by the Board of Health, like they did every school. We did some HVAC measures, but not everything in the town. They didn't give us, they would have had to give us how many millions to do the whole town? It would have been more than we received in total.
BOE money covered that for BOE, but we didn't get that kind of funding on the town side.
Okay.
See, we have, maintenance equipment, seeing just a slight increase there, that's just, inflation, we put in a cost about 2 to 4% on there, maintenance equipment. Repairs to motor vehicles, we had a debate internally, but we're gonna leave it flat this year. We feel having a larger fleet of newer vehicles coming in should help us to stay within budget. Most of the vehicles will be under warranty, so hopefully we won't be doing the $1,000, $2,000 fixing the transmissions and the exhaust systems and everything else we previously had. So we're gonna leave that, request that stay flat. Tires, you're seeing a slight increase there, again, inflation. We usually buy bulk, but we anticipate an increase next year. Car rental account, this is an account that we traditionally use. Sometimes we need for investigative purposes to take out a vehicle, a rental car from like Enterprise or something for short-term use. So we keep that account. Again, there's no increase there. Chief's expense account, flat. Postage, we are seeing a slight increase there on the postage account. 56109 department supplies, again, just inflation, we're asking for $500. We kept it flat the previous year, but we'd like to increase it this year. Cleaning supplies, again, another $500 to account for inflation. We feel that's gonna help us keep our head above water with any anticipated market increases. Medical supplies, you are seeing a slight decrease in medical supplies just because we're able to obtain our Narcan, the 4 milligram packages rather than the 2 milligrams. So there's actually a cost savings now with that.
Where do you get your medical supplies?
AMA medical supplies, what they're called, Save Lives.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to hook up with EMS, because EMS is getting a better price from Waterbury Hospital.
That's a good idea. We can talk to
I
them.
mean, it may not save much, but something.
Well, it'll streamline purchasing with it
Yeah.
too. Track supplies better.
Yeah. We'll look into that and look in a note. Let's see. So, prisoner expense, and that's flat. Photo and Verifax supplies, we're keeping that flat. So printers, general, you guys know that's generally funds that we keep for the Detective Bureau for cash they may need for any sort of investigations. No increase in the requests there. Canine maintenance, as you know, we have our police canines. I am asking for a $500 increase in that line item just due to the inflation of dog food costs. My dog, I know, is substantially up over the last couple of years. So having our 3 canines, unfortunately, we are having a slight increase there. That should keep us within budget. Firearms, if if you guys see this, what we're doing is we're going back up to our 2021 request for firearms. That generally is going to be including the majority of which is ammunition. So the state firearms contract, I believe, is coming up next year, I think, Allison, is that next year? It's coming up, so after discussion with our firearms training officers, we made a decision to try to bulk purchase more ammo now while it's still under state contract, rather than trying to piecemeal it out, because we are capable of keeping a reserve of them in the armory for a period of time. So it's only going to go up. We haven't had a substantial increase in ammunition despite the general market having substantial ones, 30-40% increases, 50-100% on the open market. But because we're under state contract, they begrudgingly honor that and do ship us our ammunition at a much reduced rate. So we're looking to increase that to make sure that we can purchase some while it's still affordable, and it'll definitely help us out. Evidence collection, this is where we purchase our forensic evidence collection, a lot of our DNA kits, evidence tape, packaging material, series of other things the detectives generally request to make a couple orders a year. J lines 56921. This is another one of those items that's we've inherited. It's the line painting for the town. We goes out to bid every year. So our vendors have informed us that due to the paint cost increase, that we can anticipate a substantial uptick. So we put in $7,000. It goes to bid every year, but it's usually a vendor comes in that we deal with, usually comes in the lowest. So we feel that's going to be cover the what it'll be next year. 57390 equipment. So there's a couple items in there that are a little bit higher. We do have a new snow blower. Our maintenance division has asked for a new snow blower. That's about $3,000. You're also seeing in there our portable radio batteries. Discussing with Allison, it's about $5,000, but it's just around that capital ask. We feel it's best to just put it in here because it's
The individual unit costs,
yes. So we do purchase them throughout the year.
there's a reoccurring expense.
Correct. Yeah. So we get about 25 to 50 a year, depending on that. So we have that increase in there this year. So 57398 increase in equipment for police officers. This includes the ballistic vests. The officers where there is an increase in the state contract pricing for ballistic vests. So that has been noted in there. It's an increase, but unfortunately, it's another thing that's outside of our control. 58,100. You're seeing an increase in dues. It's just some general increases in our regional organizations, the Regional Police Chiefs Association, ICP, PERF, a lot of the organizations that the deputy chief and I will participate in, as well as some of the other officers. They have seen some upticks. So if there's any other questions anyone has regarding any specific line items or something, I'd be glad to entertain.
Would there be any substantial savings if we were to coordinate like the 911 dispatchers together, as opposed to having separate in one in the police station, one in the fire?
Yes.
Yeah, that's under review, but not as part of his budget, it would be a separate town-wide discussion.
But yes, yeah.
Because it's police, fire.
Right.
Yeah.
There's issues with everything. Like, this is the best town in Connecticut. We can do anything we want. Like, come on.
Well,
Whatever the hurdle is, we can jump it. It's
well,
not.
let's just say this isn't the place to talk about it.
That's fine.
It's
I just.
under review.
We talked about the 30 years.
Let's make it the last year.
Hey, any questions? Lee, are you still on?
You want to be involved in that?
Sure.
I'm here. What's going on?
Can you promote Joe Savarese to panelist? I see that he's an attendee.
I have tried that multiple times. There's a message that pops up that he has to accept, and if it's not showing up, I don't really know what I can do.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Thanks.
See what we're trying to do.
Okay, any other questions for the police department? Once, or twice. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Ken.
Animal control, E27. That's a calling big one.
This is,
Saved you $100.
yeah, this is the deputy chief,
Scavenge the entire budget. Saves $100. There's rarely any change. The holding allowance, conference fees, have gone up a little bit. We lost, we were able to decrease, supplies pretty drastically.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what that was. Sorry. But again, almost no change in the line items. Everybody stays the same, then control until they get my new building. That's another conversation. Somewhere else.
And the only thing I would note is maybe this year, maybe next year, we might be looking at a capital upgrade for their facility, which
Yes.
won't be part of their operating budget, but it is being reviewed to do a fairly significant improvement to the facilities.
They need it badly.
Yes, they do.
Okay, any questions on the animal control? Okay, we'll move on to E22, emergency management.
Emergency management budget is remaining the same with the exception of, there was an increase in the, we just received for the Code Red system and of 7.99%, almost 8% increase, and that brings the cost of Code Red up to $17,670. And of course, due to the change in the salary, last year was budgeted in for 10 months. This of course is the first year it's in for 12 months. And that's the only two items that have increased. The rest remains the same.
The question, that grant that we just received, is that, but that's the same amount we always get, or
We'll get a little bit more
a
on
little
that.
more, right?
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more to offset the cost. And that's for the, unfortunately, the federal fiscal year and the state fiscal year and the municipal don't coincide, so there's an offset. Federal fiscal year is from October 1st until the end of September. So you don't see an exact correlation of 1-to-1 as far as how it affects the annual budget, but we still get it. We're gonna get a little bit more this year. And
We got a notice of the award
Yeah,
today.
we got the,
Yeah.
that will offset each cost.
That's the emergency management performance grant?
Yes.
Okay.
And along with that, just so you know, the way the performance grant is structured, the Code Red system will be able to use it not only for emergencies, we could use a percentage of the time allotted to us for non-emergency townwide notification.
Any other questions on emergency management? Okay, next, Fred, you doing safety patrol?
Yes, sir. Safety patrols remain the same. The items that we've used in that budget are for traffic vest, first aid kits for cert, flashlights, flashlight batteries, replacement batteries for the radios, and some of the training that they get. We have to pay instructors or pay a fee for, say, certain certifications. But we've done very well on in-house training. Chief Siemens helped us with a lot of the training, and and also Mountain Valley Health District has also assisted us, and EMS has assisted us with training. So we've been able to keep that figure at the same amount without any increases for a few years.
Any questions or comments on safety patrol? Fire police, we're going to skip over tonight, and research that for a later date, there's some reorganization going on. Next, the fire chief is next. Fire department, 8:20.
So the Northern Fire Police, excuse me, Northern Fire Department, should have written Fire Police Department. I'll start out and I'll go through the accounts we changed. If anybody has questions, please stop me. I'll start out with the regular payroll. And there is a change of $265,933, much like Police Chief McAllister had said. The fire contract was settled. The firefighters received a 2.5% raise July 1st, 2021, 2.5% July 1st, 2022. And they will be receiving a 2.5% raise July 1st, 2023. So on the notes there, it shows that the increase was the 2022 budget of 79,798, then 23 compounded up to 81,793, and then next year the increase will be 83,838. So if you combine those three up together, you will come up with most of the increase. The only difference is the fire marshal's office has asked for a part-time member of the fire marshal's office. I broached it with Allison and with Mayor Hess, and he suggested we put a placeholder in the budget for now. It's going to have some more discussion between all the stakeholders. But the reason we're asking for that is we have, the fire marshal's office has 3 people in it. One is our fire marshal who's sitting over here, that's Ned Dolan, and we have 2 deputy fire marshals, Jim Guys and Jason James. Jim Guys has notified us that he will be stopping his full-time employment on September 1st. Jason James, we just hired last year, and he's still in training. It takes approximately about a year to become a certified fire marshal with the 2 classes he has to get through the state. So we felt that when Jim does leave, there's a good possibility we're going to get another person who is also going to have to be trained. Per our collective bargaining agreement, the position is a promotion and is offered to the members of Local 1219 first. There has been talk that there might be interest from somebody inside the department, and if there is, that's going to leave our fire marshal here with 2 pretty much new guys. And it's going to be pretty difficult for him to try to train these 2 guys and keep the department moving full speed ahead. I don't know if anybody have had any conversations with anybody who has a multifamily or a business. I have many of them, many people reach out to me and they're surprised at how often they come back and how they're supposed to come every year and they come back every year. And they give them 30 days to fix something, and on the 30th day, fire marshal's office is back, making sure it's fixed. And it's all about having, safety and having good safe buildings, and which in turn should reduce the costs of fires and emergencies in the borough. So anyway, with that being said, what we want to do is bring, and possibly him, but have somebody work for about 20 hours a week in the office, help answer the phones, help schedule, help do all this kind of stuff, but also be a certified fire marshal. So if people call, you have a certified marshal that answers the phone and can guide you, if you answer your questions, tell you what you need and whatever. And that will enable our fire marshal, who's going to have to be on the road more often, training the new people. So the other point of it is, besides the inspection aspects of it is, you guys know, and the mayor could talk about it all day. He loves to talk about all the new buildings and stuff that are going to come in, all the buildings, all the construction and whatever. Part of that is our fire marshal has to review plans, do plan review. And we used to laugh, us who didn't have to do the job, but when Walmart did a remodel a few years back, they used to bring the plans in on a hand truck, and they were just piles and piles and piles of plans. And then they brought it in, the fire marshal, and he had to spend hours, days, looking at it. So that's the other thing that bringing somebody back part-time could assist with looking at the plans, plan review, answering the phones and whatever. So I put that as a placeholder. There's gonna be more discussion moving forward. But if you add that and then the cost of the increases with the settling of the collective bargaining agreement, that's how we come up to that 265,933 increase. Now, I do want to say, the next line item is the overtime account. And one of the big things with the settling of the contract was there was significant savings that the
Don't
borough,
call it a settlement. It's an award.
an award, okay,
Major award.
it was a major award, as everybody, I don't know, people who know, it was very contentious, but it went to arbitration and it was awarded the one major issue to the borough, which allowed management flexibility for how new firefighters are trained and whether they have to go to the Connecticut Fire Academy. Do they, we have flexibility where if we hire people who are already trained, most likely they will not have to go to the Connecticut Fire Academy. If we hire somebody who maybe is not trained, well, we used to be completely 100% committed to the Connecticut Fire Academy. Now we have the option of possibly sending them to another department in another major city that will be running a recruit type fire class. So that is a really significant savings in the overtime account. If I had presented in the file there, it's like the 8th page or whatever,
Page 9,
page 9. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Is the overtime calculation. It kind of looks like this page here. If anybody has it. And that's how we come up with what we do for our overtime calculation. We spend a significant amount of time. Deputy Chief Hanks, who's, I guess not part of the fire department today, but when he is, he was able to assist a lot. And so Assistant Chief Walt Seaman here, we spent a lot of time on this. And if I could go further, but if you look down to the bottom, the gray area, I would be requesting that bottom number, $283,000 more, if it wasn't for the changes in the collective bargaining agreement. That's what I would be requesting. Last year, part of this request, people have been here, is we have had a lot of people who have left our department. We have, since 2020, we have lost 17 people. Since March of 2020, we've replaced 17 of our firefighters. Last year, I put in a request of 6 replacements, and that was the best guess in budget time, how many we would have that left. So far, we've had 7 so far this year, so far this fiscal year. And we have 1 that's gonna be leaving in May. So I guessed 6 last budget season. It looks like we're actually going to have an 8th one in May, possibly more. But with the changes in the collective bargaining agreement, it helps us save a lot of money in replacing firefighters and training firefighters.
Well, let me stop you for a minute. So this is what we're saving in the next contract, but we also save money in the fiscal year that we're in right now. We save like 180,000 in this fiscal year, which makes up for what you just talked about, underestimating by maybe 1 man, how many people we're gonna leave. So we're gonna come out ahead on the current fiscal year, and next fiscal year, we're gonna save money in overtime. Your raise is 2.5%, which is standard, and the overtime account goes down. So the award was very beneficial to the borough of Noblesville.
Yeah, and just as you said to the police chief, there was some savings in the healthcare also.
And
That-
savings and health.
It's not part of the budget here, but there were some savings there too.
So just one question, the 133, how did you calculate that? Or how many people is that? Or are you saying there's gonna be some other additional overtime on top of what you had last year? Or why is it not 180, let's say?
So unfortunately, it doesn't work actually perfect because it depends on when the person leaves. That's a big driver for how we replace that person, how quickly we can replace them. Does it move over to the fiscal year? And I'll give you an example of how we just saved. Somebody just left, really good guy. I'm sorry he left. But he left on February 14th. The Connecticut Fire Academy had already started. So without the changes in the contract, we would have had to backfill his spot in overtime. All the way, because the next Connecticut Fire Academy doesn't start until August. If you missed February, if you miss a day, you can't hop in. And then that academy would have gone all the way till around Christmas. So we would have had to backfill that spot with overtime. So you would have had overtime in this fiscal year, and then July 1st, more overtime in next fiscal year. But we have a guy who already has training and meets the requirements that he won't have to go to the Connecticut Fire Academy. So we're probably gonna have 4, maybe 6 weeks of overtime. Because even takes us a while to onboard somebody, and it takes us a while to train them before they can go on shift. So, instead of, 10 months of overtime, we're gonna have maybe 6 weeks of overtime. So, and that's just one spot that just happened. So it's hard to show that 180, it's actually possibly more because we just hired 3 guys, but it would have overlapped in the other year.
It's good.
Save a lot of money. Yeah. Okay, and then everybody can look at this. I think it's self-explanatory. The first section of the overtime is what is backfilled for people using their contractually allowed time off. And we have a 1-for-1 replacement. So if anybody takes a vacation day, he's filled with overtime. So that is the 630,000 in the first section. Then the second section is basically our best guesses based on previous years and some estimates. Like we laugh about this, but one of their former chiefs, Chief Flaherty, came in front of this board about 25 years ago, and he said he could have a no overtime budget. Well, besides the backfilling his firefighters, if he just knew when every emergency was going to be. If everybody just could tell him in advance exactly when a fire would be, what day, what time, whatever, and we could staff accordingly. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. We have to be ready every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ready for anything. So anyway, and I'll just give you an example, like on a job injury, it's been like a 10-year estimate that approximately comes out to about 1 year, 180 shifts of OJI. So far this year, we had somebody was out from July until the end of November, with a job-related injury at a fire. Since then, we haven't had any significant injuries, and I hate to talk about it because I'm very superstitious, but my point is that hopefully, maybe we'll do a little better with that. But something else might come up. There's fire marshal overtime, which is not a lot, but maybe there's gonna be a ton of fires that he's gonna have to investigate after hours, and his crew is gonna have to investigate. So it's just an estimate. It's just a worksheet we use. It comes out really close. but it's our best guesstimate. And the last part that we included, and if towards the bottom, we put open firefighters 3. We are budgeting for 5 resignations and 2 retirements. We have a captain, we have an assistant mechanic who are both eligible to retire. I'm pretty sure they're gonna retire in the next fiscal year. I'd be willing to bet, so we put in for it. And then the 5 resignations, and that's based on, in 2020, we had 4, 2021, we had 6, 2022, we had 6. So far this year, we have 1's gone and 1's leaving in May. So we went with 5. So that's why we went with 5 and 2. So my point of all that is where it says open firefighters, we put down 3, and that's because of the hours we're gonna need, depending on who we hire, how we're going to get them trained for the department. And in case anybody asks, well, why don't you just hire trained firefighters? The problem with that is we want to be inclusive, and we want to be open, and we want to give everybody a fair chance to get one of these jobs. And if we only had retired firefighters or firefighters on the train, we would not have a very diverse workforce. So what we have done previously is we've given an open test, and we have a current list until July of 2024. We have 8 lists, and we have to hire off that list as we go. The next person, like I said, he just got offered a job. He's going to start in March. He has that training. The 2 people after him on the list have that training and won't have to go to the academy. But then the next person doesn't. She doesn't have that training yet. So we still are going to have to send some people for training, but this is an estimate for how, with the flexibility that we're given with the contract, about what it's going to cost us. Is that good?
It's a snapshot in time.
It's a very complex issue to try to summarize it quickly, okay? All right, so we'll go past the overtime. All right, the next item is school reimbursement. That is a line item that we have included. People who have a fire-related degree get a stipend. And we do have in our contract that if anybody wants to go get a fire-related degree or take classes, they can get reimbursed for their college classes based on UConn's part-time rate, which is $653 a credit now. So the contract, what used to happen in previous years is, one guy would take 1 course or one woman would take 1 course. And we just used to pay that in our training budget. But now we've had a lot of people, starting towards the end of last year, several people have said they are going to be taking classes. So because the contract says it's limited to 4 on a first come, first served basis, what we thought would be fair would be to just have 4 classes, 4 3-credit classes each semester. So it's 1 class each, limited to 4 each semester. So we used UConn's rate, which the contract says, and that's why we added. So that's why there's an increase in that line item. Next thing is clothing and uniforms. That increase is the cost of certain things, inflation, as we all know. And we're also budgeting for an extra, last year we budgeted for 6 people leaving. This year we're budgeting for 7 people leaving. Although we have significant savings in the overtime account, we still have the cost of startup fees with buying them new uniforms and buying them turnout gear and whatever. That's why that's increased. I'm gonna skip the next 2 because there's no changes. Medical examinations. And I know we added that, and our deputy fire chief is in charge of that account. And I believe it's because we're gonna have new firefighters, and more entry-level testing. Is that-
That's right.
Yeah. The pub ed account, basically the cost of all the red hats and the stickers and the coloring books that we get the kids, I've all gone up. So that's why we raised that $500.
You're gonna have to bring something good to the seniors for bingo, because they're always looking for handouts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you can tell, we've already expended that account by, 100, we're already over that account, $159. So I think, three chiefs might be making a personal donation, am I right?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, on their maintenance contracts, I had to raise that a little bit, and that's because our sprinkler system, once every 5 years, gets a complete full maintenance trip. They dump the whole system and they check everything, and that's an extra $2,450. And we are entering a maintenance contract for our portable radios, and that's like $5,280 for the year. If one of our radios breaks, it's between $4,000 and $5,000. So we can have a maintenance contract for $5,280 for the whole year. So that's why we added the maintenance contracts for our radios. If you go to repairs to motor vehicle, it's just that things have gone up, repairs have gone up, and we needed to add to that account.
Do you and the police department get together for like equipment, like radios, things like that, to try and get a better price?
Well, we have a better price for our maintenance contract for all our radio repeaters, which the police department actually funds it. It's in the contract, the maintenance contract for all our repeater sites. As far as the portable radios, we did reach out, and we don't get a break because we don't have a big enough quantity between the two departments.
Yep.
The chief was able, and him to get a discount, 15% discount if it's a multi-year. If you sign a multi-year contract, you can get a discount. Not, we don't have enough quantity.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Chief, question for you. Is it true that, usually when you purchase radios, you're under a state contract, bid, and you get, a percentage because of that,
Yeah, we do, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do buy the state bid, that's kind of thing.
Yeah.
The next account is respiratory equipment. It's just the cost of our bottles went up. We buy 7 bottles a year. I think the math is we have 105 SCBA bottles. They have a 15-year lifespan, and we replace 7 every year. We don't want to replace 8. We don't want to replace 10. We just replace 7 bottles every year. That's it, and it works perfect. So anyway, the cost went up. We added $100 to our office supply account, just because things have gone up, everything's gone up. And our department supplies, which we're asking for an extra $1,050. That kind of a catch-all when we buy things that we're not really sure don't fit into any of those other accounts. Sometimes they go under department supplies, and we need some extra money there. Protective clothing, just as I had said before, an extra person, it costs approximately $6,000 when we bring a new firefighter in, between his turnout gear, his helmet, his boots, his gloves, SCBA mask, and all the other things. We have bailout kit and all these different things we have to get. It's about $6,000 per each new firefighter. And that's it. Okay. Anybody have questions?
Thank you. Are there income items that come from the fire department, like if you issue tickets or fines or?
No, and I tell you, we have had some discussions. If we do want to go that route, and we would have to have a lot of discussions, if we do want to start billing for some of our services. There are some departments who do that. Who's gonna pay these? It's the people who already pay taxes, and not mostly. So, but the problem is, we don't really have a good way right now currently to do the billing, to collect the bill, to do that kind of stuff. There's been talk of possibly getting, can I talk about that, or through the ambulance, getting a billing person.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk of possibly getting a different billing person associated with the ambulance. And if that could be set up, then maybe we could look into billing. But as of now, we really, I mean, we charge for copies, and that's really, you charge for anything else? No, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about it, but
I mean, just like circle the Walmart parking lot a couple times a day, you'll find someone in the fire lane all day long.
That's LPD.
well, we don't get that, that's the PD.
All right,
Well,
well,
now
we're trying to
you
help
get-
you guys
you
here.
get-
The other thing, to help, so to become a firefighter outside of the academy, is there an education requirement? Like, do you have to have a college level, so is it straight high school diploma or a GED equivalent? Is there anything that we can do with our high school to get firefighters?
Yeah, so I've been talking to the superintendent and we're looking at, I'm on a committee statewide for high school entry level firefighting programs. There's a few around that have them. And we're looking, and the superintendent's very interested in having one here in Naugatuck. And EMT also. So we're working towards that and going through the motions. So that will help Naugatuck residents become firefighters and EMTs within the two hiring agencies.
Walter, don't you still have the problem, though, because I mean, years ago, we discussed lowering the age required to become a fireman.
So we don't have a problem. So the State of Connecticut Commission on Fire Prevention and Control says that they can test for firefighter one when they're 17, and they won't obtain their certification until they're 18. So from 18 to 21, that allows them that time. Now, prior to that, going back to when you were on the commission, you couldn't take any fire service training at all unless you belonged to a fire department. So there is a college now out of New Haven where they have a program targeted towards those citizens that live in towns such as Naugatuck and Waterbury and New Haven and Bridgeport that don't have that opportunity to get that training. So that's no longer true. They could go to that college, get college credits, get that training.
So we are making some progress.
We're making some progress, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and I just want to say, as far as starting when they're 18, the fire commission has had a lot of discussions about that.
Well, we had it, what, 15 years ago?
Yeah, and it's, again, we have the same conversations over and over again, and you know, the thing is, you can go into war, or why can't you be an Naugatuck firefighter? But my personal opinion is, we spent $1.5 million on a ladder truck. It's beautiful, it's awesome, it's incredible, and now you have to be 16 years and 6 months to get your driver's license. And I would really like drivers to get, I don't know, age a little before we get them and they drive our fire apparatus. I mean, I know there's probably some incredible 18-year-olds, and we don't have, it's not like we don't get enough applicants. We just gave a test. We limited it to 12 miles around Naugatuck. We gotta be, as the crow flies, 12 miles around Naugatuck. And we had 80, don't quote me, because I have it in front of me, but 80 something people that are still on our list. And that was a 12-mile radius of Naugatuck. We had 80 something people apply. What we did do is we took out the EMT requirement. We used to have an EMT requirement. And the reason we took that out,
10 years ago.
well, we took it out, and we put it back in, and took it out, and we put it back in. And the reason is because we want to give everybody a fair opportunity to be a Naugatuck firefighter. And what we found is that when you have an EMT component, and I've been to a lot of training and seminars who talk about this, when you put this EMT component up, you actually limit your pool. And there's a lot of people who are economically disadvantaged, don't have the $1,500 to take an EMT class.
That was the reason we took it out the
And
first
whatever,
time.
so there was a
Lawsuit back there.
yeah, so we took it out. We had a lot of people apply. We have a pretty vigorous list. And, you know, like I said, some of the people we're gonna get to, they don't have any firefighter training. But we wanna, you know, I think, you know, I think, my opinion, we wanna open our doors and give everybody a shot. And it is everybody has an equal shot now to be a Naugatuck firefighter. You have to ballot, you have to have a driver's license. You have to have a Connecticut driver's license, you have to be 21 years old, and you have to live within 12 miles of Naugatuck. So as long as you live within 12 miles of Naugatuck, if you want to say we discriminate against people who live 100 miles away, well, I don't know, I guess you can make that argument, but we don't care about those people. We want local people.
Well, there's a rational basis for the 12 miles.
So this high school program will aid in all.
Okay. Any other questions for the fire department? Anybody online? Okay, last one, 827, Eastside Fire Station.
Okay, the East Side Fire Station, we are keeping it exactly the same as last year. If you want me to talk about it, it's total cost of running the East Side Fire Station, not including manpower, is $6,900.
Any questions on these? That is all we have for tonight.
Can I say something, Ken?
Absolutely.
All right, so remember what we said at the beginning, when we get toward the end, we're gonna put scenarios together and see where we are. We're gonna work on the phasing. But just to give you a number to put in your head, forgetting reval, forget phasing, forget everything else. We're gonna generate about 1.2 million in new revenue just off of buildings that were built last year that are new to the Granite. So not counting any of our new developments. So if we stay close to 1.2 million without regard to reval or phasing in, it's gonna be close to a flat budget. If you go over that number, we're not, but that's a number that I put in my head when I total everything up. Allison?
I'm absolutely agree with you right now.
Okay.
I just want him done.
Yes, you're up next.
I wanted to, I have,
You go last.
yeah, but I don't have any.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to talk to Katie.
Any other comments, questions, concerns for tonight? We will see you next week for,
And it's,
next week is town hall land use, probate, information, finance, and municipal audit. 6:30, next Monday. Thank you. And now we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:51.
recording.
That was easy. Allison, you've been playing chicken with that flag the whole time. And I was trying to find a way to tell, it was almost, the last one almost went over.
I was
See it?
waiting for it, yep. And I didn't want to stop
It was the
anyone.
American flag. I would have done the right thing, but
I was like, she's about to get impaled.
Did you stop recording?